So here's the run through for B3C3 P3 Foundation Paper 3. Make sure you've done 1 and 2 before you've done this one. As ever, you always have this equations table in the front of your paper. Make sure you use it, especially during the physics section where you've got these important equations where essentially you'll be given the answer if you can just look up the correct equation. However, the first section is the biology section. So first question says, look at the diagram of the human circulatory system. There it is. So you've got the heart and the lungs and the rest of the body. Complete the sentences. Blood at X is travelling through the right side of the heart. There. And blood in arteries under higher pressure than it is in veins. So that's what you need to put in for those 2 marks there. Next question, blood contains cells. One type of cell is a red blood cell. What does this do? So a red blood cell carries oxygen. So remember, there are 3 parts to blood really. The red blood cell, which carries oxygen. You've got the platelets, which will clog up and form scabs. And you've got the white blood cells, which fight infection. Hemoglobin is found in red blood cells. Which chemical codes for the production of hemoglobin? So that is DNA for that mark. And then blood also contains white blood cells. White blood cells are made in bone marrow. How can bone marrow cells make lots of white blood cells? This was 2 marks. So the way that cells make lots of other cells as it is, you've got cell division for the first mark. And if you use the type of cell division, because you went a bit further, then that is mitosis. You've got to make sure you use that one. And then the second mark is saying that the cells differentiate, so cell or specialise. So cell division and then cell specialisation for those 2 marks. Next question. This question is about respiration. Look at the diagram of a respirometer. It can be used to measure or investigate the gases involved in aerobic respiration. So here it is. Complete the word equation for aerobic respiration. So it's glucose, and what else do we need to respire? Well, we need oxygen. That's why we breathe in the air, to get the oxygen out of it. And the 2 things that we make as a byproduct are carbon dioxide and water. Never write energy in a chemical equation. So that's glucose plus oxygen makes carbon dioxide and water. Look at the tables. The first table shows a respiratory quotient, the RQ of 3 food types. Second table shows results from an experiment investigating the aerobic respiration in 2 types of seed. And it says, this is a 6 mark question. It says calculate the RQ for the 2 types of seed and use your answers to suggest how the food type used is different for the 2 types of seed. But as with all the 6 mark questions these run through, I want you to mark that yourself using the mark scheme because they're a little bit too complicated to go through in a video. If you're unsure though, make sure you ask your teacher. Next question, during respiration, food is broken down by enzymes. What are enzymes? So enzymes are chemicals that speed up a reaction. So that's the first mark. For second mark is the idea that they have an active site, or the lock and key. So chemicals speed up reaction because they have lock and key would get you the second mark. Look at the picture of a corn cob. There it is. There are many different varieties of corn. A farmer grows 4 different varieties. Look at the table showing characteristics of the 4 different varieties. It says calculate the average number of kernels on each cob of fleet corn. So you've got, here is fleet corn, and you've got number of rows and the average number of kernels per row. So to work out the average number of kernels in each cob, you just do the average number of the number of rows of kernels in each cob times the average number of kernels per row. So that's 12 times 15, and that gives you 180. Then which variety has the highest average number of kernels per cob? So that is the Miracle variety. That's just looking up from the table, 500 kernels in each cob. And then the farmer wants to grow corn that is both fast-growing and has lots of kernels. Describe how the farmer can do this by selectively breeding using 2 of his varieties. So you want to make sure that you choose the one that's the fastest growing one and the one that has lots of kernels. So the fastest growing one is your fleet, and the one that has the most kernels is your miracle. So you want to crossbreed fleet and miracle, and that'll get you 2 marks. If you just select fleet and miracle, that only gets you 1 mark. And then you need to repeat that process each generation, choosing the best offspring each time. So you've got 2 marks saying crossbreeding fleet and miracle, and then 3rd mark is saying that you select the best plants to crossbreed each time. Biologists have also used genetic engineering to improve corn. What is genetic engineering? So that's just the transfer of genes for 1 mark from one organism to another, but actually for the 1 mark you just need to put the transfer of genes. During the genetic engineering process, biologists need to identify genes. Why? So that's just so you make sure you have the right gene. So you have to find the right gene to transfer that have the desired characteristics. So choose the right gene with desired characteristics. So 1 mark is saying that you're choosing the right gene, 1 mark saying that with the desired characteristics. Some people are concerned that there may be harmful effects from genetically engineered corn. Suggest what these harmful effects might be. So there's 2 marks here, but there's 3 different things you could say. You could say that that they may affect things that eat the corn. You could say that new genes might move into other plants, or you could say that you lose biodiversity. Or you could say that the corn may produce a harmful substance. So any 2 of those things that I've said. Next question. Stowmarket Ethics manufacture ethanoic acid by 2 different processes. And then it gives you a table of relative formula masses. It says calculate the relative formula mass of ethanol. So remember, relative formula mass is where you add together all the masses of the different atoms that are in there and the number of atoms. So you've got 2 carbons, and you know that because of that little 2 after the C. You've got 6 hydrogens, and you've got 1 oxygen. So carbon weighs 12 for each one, so that's 2 times 12. Hydrogen weighs 1 each one, so that's 6 times 1. And you've got 1 oxygen, so that's 1 times 16. So that equals 24 plus 6 plus 16, so that equals 46 if you add all that up. Then in process 2, Stowmarket Ethics use 320 grams of methanol. They make 600 grams of ethanoic acid. What mass of carbon monoxide do they need? So here, in process 2, this is using the idea of conservation of mass. The mass of everything you use needs to add up to the mass of everything you make. So if you're making 320 grams of methanol, sorry, if you're using 320 grams of the methanol here, and you're making 600 grams of the ethanoic acid, then the difference in those 2 masses must be the mass of the carbon monoxide you're using. So essentially you're going to do 600 take away 320, which gives you 280 grams. Next question. Stowmarket Ethics know that the atom economy of a process is important. Water at a waste product in process 1 show that the atom economy for making ethanoic acid in process 1 is 77%. So remember, atom economy is the relative mass of the desired product. So in this case, that is the ethanoic acid. So ethanoic acid has a relative mass of 60, and then you divide that by the relative mass of all the products. So that's 60 plus the water, which is 18. And then for atom economy, it's a percentage, so you times that by 100, and that equals 77% if you work that out. Stowmarket Ethics also know the percentage yield of a process is important. The factory uses 5.2 tonnes of methanol, and a scientist predicts they should make 9.8 tonnes of ethanoic acid, but they actually make 9.5. So show the percentage yield of ethanoic acid is 97. So percentage yield is the actual yield divided by the predicted yield times by 100. So it's 9.5 divided by 9.8, and then times that by 100, and that equals 97%. So as long as you write all the working then you will get the 2 marks. Next question, look at the table. It gives information about the atom economy and percentage yield for making ethanoic acid. For the 2 processes, and it says that process 2 is a greener process. Explain why. So the higher the atom economy, the greener the process. So that's your first mark. It's got a higher atom economy. And what that basically means is that less of the substance is wasted. So less waste is made. Now, if there was a 2-mark question, that'll get you 2 marks, but actually you only need 1 of those to get that 1 mark. Next question, nitrogen molecules react with oxygen molecules. Nitrogen monoxide molecules are made. Write down the word equation. So I've said in previous run-throughs that you should always get this mark. First thing, draw the arrow, then work out what is reacting. So it tells you that nitrogen molecules react with oxygen. So you've got nitrogen plus oxygen on the the left-hand side. Then what is made? Well, only one thing is made here, nitrogen monoxide. And that's okay, you don't always have to have 2 products. The reaction is endothermic. And it asks what is meant by the words endothermic reaction. So that's a reaction that absorbs energy. So a reaction that absorbs energy. Or you could say that a reaction where the surroundings get colder. The next question is a 6-mark question, so mark that yourselves using the run-through online on the Google site, the Blue Coat Science Google site, but ask your teacher to check it if you are unsure. The next question is about different forms of carbon. So it says diamond and graphite, 2 forms of carbon. There's your pictures of the way the atoms are arranged in graphite and diamond. One of the physical properties of diamond is colourless. Describe some other physical properties of diamonds. So it's 2 marks here, so you just need any 2 of these. You can say it's hard, you can say it doesn't conduct electricity, you can say that it's a conductor of heat, you could say it has a high melting point, you could say it doesn't dissolve in water, you could say it's shiny or lustrous, you can say it's transparent. Any of those points will get you the 2 marks. I imagine you probably put that it's hard and it's shiny or transparent, but any of the others will be fine. Graphite is used to make the electrodes for electrolysis. Explain why. And that's simply because it conducts electricity. So 1 mark there for saying it conducts electricity. Next question. Eva is investigating liquid fuels. She wants to find out which liquid fuel gives out the most energy per gram. Look at the apparatus. I'm sure you will recognise this. You probably all done it in class. She heats 100 centimetre cube of water, and Eva uses 5 liquid fuels. Each time she burns 1 gram of liquid fuel, and she makes a prediction that the more atoms there are in the molecule of fuel, the greater the temperature increase. And there's Eva's results. The first question says complete the table by putting in the missing values for the number of atoms in a molecule and the temperature increase. So in methanol, methanol has, as you can see in the table, the formula CH4O. So there's 1 atom, and there's 4 hydrogens, and there's 1 oxygen. That equals 6, so you need to put 6 in the table for methanol. And then butanol is C4H10O. So there you've got 4 carbon atoms, 10 hydrogen atoms, and 1 oxygen, and that equals 15. So you've got 15 for that one. And then the temperature increases, you should add 12 for ethanol and 14 for propanol. So that's just working out the difference between the start temperature and the end temperature. And it says, do Eva's results support a prediction? Explain your answer. So you could put yes or no here. So if you put yes, you could say that there's a temperature increase from methanol to butanol where the number of atoms are increasing. If you put no, then you could put that pentanol has the most atoms, but it has a lower temperature increase than the butanol. So either of them, but if you've identified pentanol as an odd result, you get a mark anyway. So first mark is identifying pentanol as an odd result, saying pentanol is an anomaly, or it doesn't match the trend. And then the second mark is saying either yes or no, depending on what you put. There wasn't a correct answer there. If you put yes, you've got to say that there is an increase in temperature from 6 atoms to 15 atoms. If you put no, you've got to say because pentanol doesn't fit the trend. Next question, pharmaceutical drugs or medicines are often made in a batch process. What's the difference between a batch and a continuous process? This has come up before in a previous one. So because you need to have 1 point, you can say a continuous process takes place all the time, whereas a batch process is not done 24/7. So one of those. So just say a continuous process takes place all the time, whereas a batch process does not. Pharmaceutical drugs are tested thoroughly before they can be licensed and sold. Explain why. So 2 marks here, any of these two. So first to see if the drug works, you could to check whether there's any side effects, and to find out the dosage that is needed for it to work. So any 2 of those 3 points. So 1, to check it works. 2, to see if there's any side effects, or to check it's safe, or to check it's not poisonous. And 3, to find out what dose is needed for it to work. So now on to the physics section. So first question, tall buildings often have lifts or elevators to transport people up and down. Look at the drawing of Taipei 101 Tower, one of the tallest buildings in the world. There it is. It says the lift takes 26.1 seconds to travel from the ground floor to the top floor, and the average speed of the cars driving the road past the tower at 15.7 meters per second. Is the average speed of the lift greater than the average speed of the cars? Use your calculation your answer. So essentially you've just got to work out what the speed of the lift is. So it tells you that the height of the building is 442 meters. So to work out speed, you do distance divided by time. So the speed of the elevator is 442 divided by 26.1. So that gives you 16.9. So there's your speed of the lift. And then you can see that therefore that the speed of the lift is higher. So lift is faster by 1.2 meters per second. So you get a mark for working out the speed, a mark for saying the lift is faster, and then a mark for saying by how much. Ding Wei is a businessman. He travels up to the 40th floor for a meeting. Look at the speed time graph. There it is. In the first section of the graph, which part shows the lift moving at a constant speed? So here's your first section of the graph. So at a constant speed, you could choose at a constant. Well, here's the speed. So a constant speed is where it's flat. So that's from B to C. And then suggest and explain what could be happening between D and E and between F and G on the graph. So that is where the speed is 0. So it's probably where the lift has stopped. So first mark is saying lift has stopped. And then saying why. So that's probably to let people in and out. And then the third mark saying that why is this time longer than this time? So probably more people let out between F and G. When the lift is moving upwards, work is done by lift motors. There are 8 people in the lift. The average weight of each person is 600 newtons. They travel at a distance of 30 meters upwards from the first floor. Calculate the work done in lifting 8 people. So work done is force times distance. The first thing you've got to do is work out the total force. That's 8 times 600. So that gives you 4,800. And then remember that work done is force, which is that, times distance, which is 30 meters. So it's 4,800 times 30, and that gives you 144,000. Remember that the work done equation is in the front of the booklet. So if you're ever doing a calculation, look at the front of the booklet to check whether the equation is there. The lift now travels upwards a further 40 meters with the 8 people inside. Put a tick in the box which correctly completes sentence about this second journey. So if you're travelling further, because remember the first one is 30 meters, the second one is 40 meters, but the same number of people, then more work is going to be done. This next question is the physics 6-mark question, so use the mark scheme to mark that yourself and use your teacher if you're unsure to check it for you. Next question, look at the graph. It shows the speed of a football drop from a high cliff. Write down the name of the force causing the football to accelerate in parts A to B of the graph. And that is the gravity pulling it towards the earth. So gravity. Write down the name of the force acting against the movement of the football in part A to B of the graph. So if it's falling through the air, that means air resistance is going to be acting against it, or drag would also get you that mark. Then which part of the graph shows the football moving at a terminal speed? So you can see the speed is constant here on the flat line. So that's between B and C. And then why does the football reach a terminal speed? So terminal speed occurs because the gravity and air resistance have the forces of those become balanced. So you just put forces are balanced. That's the reason why a terminal speed is reached. And then last couple of questions. So first question, look at the table below. It shows different stones drop from different heights. So there we are. Which stone has the greatest gravitational potential energy when it is dropped? So gravitational potential energy is mass times gravity times height. So the one that has the greatest gravitational potential energy is one where these multiply to the greatest amount. So if you work out all of those, the first one is 2,000, second one is 4,000, the third one is 4,000 as well, and the last one is 8,000. So Y has the greatest gravitational potential energy when it is dropped. That gets you 1 mark, and it's because it has the largest mass and also the greatest height as well. For your 3 marks. Last question. ABS in cars is a design feature which reduces the chance of an accident. Crumple zones are another safety feature. Explain their purpose. So their purpose are to reduce injuries or absorb the energy or protect the driver or passenger. And it is in the event of a crash or a collision. That's your second mark. So their purpose is to protect the driver or passenger, or to absorb energy, or to reduce injuries in a crash or a collision. So those are your 2 marks. Add up your marks, add it to your poster. Hopefully your marks are increasing as you're doing more of these.